We're in the book of beginnings, and we're talking about Joseph and a dream interpreter. Tonight, as I said the last couple of times, the majority of the book of Genesis is about Joseph. When you get to the 37th chapter, except for the 38th chapter, all of it has to do with Joseph there on through the end of the 50th chapter. So he takes up a good bit of it. The only story of any particular person's life that is any longer in the Bible is Moses. So you can read the book of Genesis, you're going to read a lot about Joseph. So tonight I want to start with the 40th chapter, and we're going to start with verse 1. So after this, the Egyptian king's cupbearer and baker offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them into custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned Joseph to them, and he became their personal attendant, and they were in custody for some time. So, we're talking about two people that did something to kind of upset the Pharaoh, and he had them thrown into prison. One was a cupbearer, and the other was a baker, and I'm quite sure you know what a baker is. And a cupbearer is something different. That's the definition that I found. If you want to read that, fine. But cupbearer basically he was the one that brought whatever liquids was consumed by the Pharaoh. He was in charge of it. And many times, cupbearers, it doesn't say with this particular one, they would taste the cup before the Pharaoh would, because if it was poisoned, it would kill the cupbearer. So I don't know that I'd want to have his job, and I definitely wouldn't want to have a job working for a man that's going to throw me in prison because he got upset. I'd rather him just fire me. I could get another job somewhere, but he was a little more serious about that. And the baker, something you might not know, of course, is the second part there. Egypt is widely regarded as the birthplace of leavened bread. So a big part of their culture had to do with bread, or a lot of their diet was around bread and baked goods. So he was the chief baker. He was in charge of that. Now we don't know how much that would be. We don't know how big his household was. But anyway, that was the man, and he did something, and the cupbearer did something at the same time, got him thrown into jail. And I just asked the question, what did they do? And we don't have any idea what they did. But they did something that kind of upset the Pharaoh. And so the Pharaoh had them thrown into, the king had them thrown into prison. Fourth verse there says, the captain of the guard assigned Joseph to them, and he became their personal attendant. And they were in custody for some time. The Egyptian king's cupbearer and baker, who were confined in the prison, each had a dream. Okay, now they both had a dream. Most of you all know this story, but so pretend like you haven't heard this story, because if you're reading a part in the Bible of something you've read a lot, pretend like you haven't read it when you read it. If you go back to read it again, because a lot of times we'll assume things because we think we know it, and then we find out there's something we have missed. And I can read the same things that I've read hundreds of times, and then see something fresh or from a new angle. It says the Egyptian king's cupbearer and baker, who were confined in the prison, each had a dream. Both had a dream on the same night. So both of them had a dream on the same night. And each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they looked distraught. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were in custody with him in his master's house, why do you look so sad today? Okay, first couple of questions. Is it significant that they both had a dream on the same night? It might not be significant to us, but with the superstitions of the day, it was probably significant to them because it was on the same night. And the second question has to do with, it didn't matter whether it's significant or not, what did they believe? And they believed it was. That's the reason they were upset. They believed there was some significance to it. And do dreams have meaning? Sigmund Freud, and this is a quote, Sigmund Freud's theory on dreams are foundational to his psychoanalytic approach. He viewed dreams as the royal road to the unconscious, where repressed thoughts and desires surface in distorted forms. Now, I'm not a fan of Freud, and I don't follow what he believes and what he teaches. Much of what he came up that was groundbreaking at the time, they have found now that was not true. They have found much better answers for many things than what Freud did. Not that everything he said was wrong, but he believed. This is in the 20th century. He believed that dreams had meaning. And sometimes dreams can have meaning. In fact, we'll find that out in just a minute. But most of the dreams I have, if they have any meaning, I sure can't figure out what it is. Because I dream some of the weirdest, wildest stuff sometimes. And I think back, I must have eaten something that didn't agree with me for me to dream that. I am told, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I'm told that we have in our brains what they call glial cells. And the glial cells' purpose is when you go to sleep at night, they sort and clean up everything and put it in order in your brain. So evidently they have all that stuff crossing each other when I'm asleep, when they're trying to clean up everything that I've got in there. But I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what I have read. It said, "We had dreams," they said to him, "but there is no one to interpret them." Hamilton, a Bible scholar, said, "A dream without an accompanying interpretation is like a diagnosis without a prognosis." In other words, they can diagnose something, but unless they can give you something, like my brother went to the hospital yesterday, and this morning did a catheter and found out that he, from what I can understand, a couple of the bypasses they put in were not open enough, so they had to put stents in them to open them up. So if they had just said, "This is what your problem is," and hadn't given him a prognosis and hadn't said, "This is what we can do about it," what good would it have been? It would have been a waste of time. And that's what he's saying here. In this case, we do know these meanings, these dreams did have meaning to them. Does Joseph, so far as we know, was he known as somebody who interpreted dreams up to this point in Genesis? Why would anybody think that he would interpret dreams? What did he have to do with dreams? In the story of him, what do we know about him with dreams? He had two dreams. And the two dreams he had showed that his brothers were going to bow down to him, and the second one showed that his brothers and his father and mother were going to bow down to him, which is not. And then he was not wise enough to not tell his brothers this, and it got him into trouble. So that's the only thing we know about it. So why would they go to him to find out interpretation of a dream, or why would he even think that? Well, the last part of verse 8 there said, "Then Joseph said to them, 'Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams.'" So what's he saying? He's saying, God can interpret your dreams. I can't. You tell me what it is and we'll go from there. And that's the best we can ask for. And it seems like Joseph is a lot wiser than he was with his brothers. He, instead of sticking his foot in his mouth, he said, "This is up to God. God's going to have to tell you what this is. I can't." 1 Corinthians 12:1 says this, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant." And the fourth verse says, "Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit." In other words, the gifts come from the Spirit of God. "And there are differences of administration, but the same Lord." Down to the seventh verse. "But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man for what purpose? To profit withal, to profit everybody." Then he gives a list of gifts. I'm not going to list them all here. "But all these worketh," this is out of the King James Version, "that one and the self same Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will." So one of these things is dreams, and interpretation of dreams is sometimes things that you considered that were a gift from the Holy Spirit that God gives people to understand certain things. And a lot of times there's people that say, that will tell me, "I have the gift of this, I have the gift of that." Well, do you? Or do you have the gift of wisdom, or do you have the gift of suspicion? Which one do you have? Are you just a suspicious person, or is God really giving you wisdom? Is he giving you knowledge? Because the gift of knowledge and the gift of wisdom are two of them that are in this list. And so Joseph is not claiming any special powers or anything else. He's just saying God is the one that interprets dreams. And if God interprets dreams, then we need to go to God with this. And I, just as a reminder, human beings do not own any gifts. Now, even when it comes to natural gifts, like my brother Earl plays guitar, he teaches guitar, banjo, mandolin, he's been a music teacher for years. And all of my brothers played some musical instrument, and we played in a band together for years, and so on. So we were in music, and I can tell you from being around in the music community with people that are guitarists and drummers and organists and pianists and all that kind of stuff, that some people, that most anybody can learn how to play a guitar. You can be taught how to play a guitar, but some people learn so much faster than others, and they seem to have an aptitude for it. Like O'Brien Jones. O'Brien Jones never took a music lesson in his life when he was a little boy. Of course, he's passed away years ago now. What was told to me, he just crawled up on the bench, a piano, and started playing. And he could play anything. You say, O'Brien, can you play this? If he knew the tune, he'd play it. Didn't have to have any music. So he had a special talent and ability there, and as far as I'm concerned, he was given that at birth, because I don't have that talent. I can read some music and I can pick out some notes, but I can't play the piano. I know a few chords on the guitar, but I'm not much on the guitar. But I know that there's some people that are better at it than others, so it must be a gifting in order for that to happen. Richard Elliott Freeman says this: the significance of dreams in human experience, and the significance of dreams interpretation especially, is reflected by this fact. The first divine power possessed in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, or the Old Testament, is the interpretation of dreams. So the first supernatural gift that we see in the Bible has to do with dreams, interpretations of dreams. The very first thing, and we can see that with what's happening here. Now, the chief cupbearer's dream. This is what he dreamed. In my dream, there was a vine in front of me. On the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms came out, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Now, if he'd have told you that dream, what would you have said? I don't have any idea. We better pray, and better pray a long time if you expect me to tell you anything. The good news is, 12th verse, this is its interpretation. Joseph said to him, the 3 branches are 3 days. In just 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand the way you used to when you were his cupbearer. So he gave him a good interpretation of it. He said, this is going to happen, and you're in 3 days, you're going to be lifted up, you're going to be put back into your position. I don't know if I'd want my old job back. If every time he gets upset with me, he throws me in prison, but I guess that's better than what could happen. So anyway, he gives him an interpretation, and he's happy with this interpretation. He knows this is going to happen. So that gives a little bit of confidence to the chief baker. The chief baker saw that the interpretation was positive. He said to Joseph, I also had a dream. 3 baskets of white bread were on my head. In the top basket were all sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. Now, what would you have told him? Would you have had any answer for him? I wouldn't. But he was anxious. You can almost see that in the way he says he was anxious to give his dream. He'd just heard such a good interpretation from the other one. He was looking forward to hearing what Joseph had to say to him. So if I was Joseph, I might have hedged my bet a little bit here, but he didn't. Interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In just 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from off you and hang you on a tree. Then the birds will eat the flesh from your body. That's not what he wanted to hear. He was not happy with his interpretation. And the bad thing, you notice both of them were 3 days, in 3 days' time, and it came to pass just as it said there. And I just asked, I was thinking here, because in interpreting that, the cupbearer's dream and the baker's dream, Joseph was in his interpretation was telling them something that was going to happen in the future. Would you like to be able to see the future? I don't think I would, because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and you're either going to, if you knew it was something bad and it was going to happen 3 weeks from now or a month from now, what would you do between now and then? You would worry. You'd be upset. You wouldn't be. What should you be doing? You should be praying, but that's not what we, as human beings, that's not something we do. But we don't pray by nature. We pray because we decide to, because we love the Lord Jesus Christ, and because we know that God answers our prayers. So we listen, so we pray. But most people, even good, devout, God-loving Christians, don't find prayer an easy thing to do. And it's many times you'll say, I'm going to start a prayer routine. I'm going to pray 30 minutes every morning. First morning comes around. You get down on your knees or whatever position is good for you, and you start praying. And you know it's been at least 20 minutes. And you look up, it's been 5. Then you get that, you're going to pray a little longer. So you start praying again. You pray, it's been my 30 minutes. It's been 12 minutes. It's when you start praying, when you start doing something like that, it seems like time just drags by. It's not something unless you really get involved in something, like reading. If you read something, if I'm reading something I'm really enjoying, time will get past me. If I'm reading something I've got to read or I need to read, and it's not something I particularly like, but I've got to read it, it doesn't seem like it goes by quickly at all. So from that perspective, no, I don't want to be able to see the future. I don't want to see in the future whether it's good or bad. I just go by, I trust God. But here these two men, they got to see into the future. Both of them got to see into the future. One was happy, one was not. Then Joseph made a request of the cupbearer. But when all goes well for you, okay, first, if you've never noticed this before, that's a statement of faith on Joseph's part. He said when, he didn't say if all goes well with you. If it turns out like I said, if this happens. He didn't say that. He said, when all goes well for you. Remember that I was with you. Please show kindness to me by mentioning me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing that they should put me in the dungeon. I hadn't done anything to do it. So he's asking the cupbearer, he said, everything's going to go good for you. God's told me everything's going to go good. This is going to happen to you. When it does, remember me. What did the cupbearer do? Did the cupbearer, why? Why didn't he, if Joseph interpreted his dream. That was a supernatural thing. That was a great gift. It was given to him from God through Joseph to him. It looks like you'd appreciate it enough to mention something to your boss about it. Mention something to Pharaoh about what happened there. Why wouldn't he do that? Okay, what are some reasons why he wouldn't? One thing is, he's Pharaoh. You don't want to rock the boat. You got out of, before we're too hard on the cupbearer, This man, the Pharaoh, holds your life in his hands. So, is it that he didn't want to cause he didn't want to ruffle any feathers with the Pharaoh? He was afraid to ask? Or was it he was so excited when he got there that he just didn't think about it? It could have been any number of things. But it doesn't tell us, so that's not important. If it doesn't tell us, it's not important. Sometimes we have short memories. Will Rogers said this: "The short memories of the American voters is what keeps our politicians in office." Is that true? That's true. If you don't, how many times I try not to do this in a mean way, but people say, "I liked President so-and-so." I said, "What did you like that he did?" I don't care which side it's on. Most people can't tell you. They can't tell you just you like him, you like his personality, you like what people said about him, you liked all different kinds of things. But people have short memories, and we forget things. We forget about what happened with a particular situation, and we'll fall right back into the same thing. What it says, tell your eyesight's going bad when you run into people on the street that you owe money to. And there's people that when you loan money to somebody and they come back and they don't pay you back, they come back the next time and it's been a while, and a lot of times you'll forget and you'll loan them money again. And then you remember why it was you said you weren't going to do that in the first place. But we have short memories. Whatever the reason was, when it comes to this particular situation, he did not remember, or didn't choose to remember, or didn't choose to go to bat for Joseph. But the Torah continually reminds us to remember. It says over and over again, more than a third of millennials in the U.S. now approve of communism, while the popularity of capitalism has plummeted since 2018, according to YouGov polling. What would that be? Why would that be? Why would that be? Why would people that are younger not see the evils of communism the way we would? Because we lived through it. We lived during that time. We saw the things that happened with Khrushchev and with the Soviet Union and even with China and the different communist countries. We saw how communism failed so many times before, and now we have a big percentage of, there's 30% of I think it's 30% or better of the young people in our country today that prefer communism over free market system that we have. Why? They don't know. They don't remember. We forget things. 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the Nile when 7 healthy-looking, well-fed cows came up from the Nile and began to graze among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, sickly and thin, came up from the Nile and stood beside those cows along the bank of the Nile. The sickly, thin cows ate the healthy, well-fed cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep and dreamed a second dream. 7 heads of grain, plump and ripe, came up on one stalk. After them, 7 heads of grain, thin and scorched by the east wind, sprouted up. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 plump, ripe ones. Then Pharaoh woke up, and it was only a dream. It was only a dream. So what does he do? I'll tell you next week. Are there any questions that put, yes, use Google. That's what most people say. You'll have any questions or comments?